The market district of Crossroads Hub smelled like 1,000 different worlds mixed together. Spices from the southern colonies blended with the sharp scent of metal being welded in the workshops. Riley Dawson sat at her usual table near the fountain, eating noodles from a foam container while Frost dozed on her shoulder. The little dragon was no bigger than her hand. His scales were pure white, almost transparent in the bright station lights. Most dragons grew to the size of horses, with scales in brilliant reds, golds, or greens. Frost would never be that big. His albinism had stunted his growth, making him a permanent miniature. Riley loved him exactly as he was. "Is that a dragon?" A voice cut through the market noise. Riley looked up to see 3 tall figures approaching. They were HFY, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in sharp angles. The one in front wore expensive robes that marked him as wealthy. Very wealthy. Riley swallowed her noodles and nodded politely. "Yes, he is." The HFY leaned closer, studying Frost like he was examining a broken tool. "How strange. I have never seen one so small. Or so colorless. Is it sick?" "He's healthy," Riley said, keeping her voice neutral. Frost stirred slightly but didn't wake. He trusted Riley to handle things. "Defective, then." The HFY turned to his companions. "Look at this. A failed specimen. The breeding must have gone wrong." Riley's jaw tightened, but she stayed calm. People had said worse things about Frost before. She had learned to let it slide. Most of the time. "How much do you want for it?" The lead HFY pulled out a credit chip. "I collect unusual items. This would make an interesting conversation piece." "He's not for sale." Riley went back to her noodles, hoping they would take the hint. Everything has a price. Human. The merchant's voice carried that particular tone that rich people used when they thought they were being generous. "I will give you 5,000 credits. That is more than you make in 3 months, yes?" "Not interested." Riley didn't look up. 10,000 then. The HFY waved his hand dismissively. "You primitives do not understand the value of things. I am being very fair." Riley set down her container carefully. Around them, other humans in the market had started to notice the conversation. A dock worker stopped unloading crates. 2 engineers paused their argument about fuel lines. The background noise of human activity went quiet in a way that made smart people nervous. "His name is Frost," Riley said slowly. "He's not an it, he's not defective, and he's not for sale at any price." The HFY laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of glass. "You are attached to a broken animal. How very human. So emotional over simple things." His companion joined in the laughter. "Perhaps we should report her to station authority. Keeping a rare creature in improper conditions. She probably cannot even afford proper care for it." The lead merchant, who Riley would later learn was named Harvin, reached toward Frost with one crystalline finger. "Let me examine the creature. I want to see if it is worth purchasing at all." Riley's hand shot out and caught his wrist before he could touch Frost. Her grip was firm, her reflexes sharp from years of training. Harvin froze, surprised that a human could move that fast. "I asked nicely," Riley said, her voice dropping to something cold and flat. "I was polite. I explained clearly. Now I'm going to give you one warning." She released his wrist. "Walk away. Fight now." Harvin's expression shifted from surprise to anger. His crystalline face somehow managed to look offended. "How dare you touch me? Do you know who I am?" "Someone who's about to make a big mistake," Riley said. "I will have you arrested for assault." Harvin's voice rose loud enough that half the market turned to watch. "You cannot treat your betters this way." Frost finally woke up, sensing Riley's tension through their bond. He lifted his small head and chirped softly. The sound was surprisingly clear and musical. "Your betters?" Riley stood up slowly. She was not particularly tall for a human, but she suddenly seemed to take up more space. "You come to my table. You insult my friend. You try to buy him like he's cargo. Then you try to grab him without permission. And you think you're better than me?" Station security was pushing through the crowd now. 2 officers in gray uniforms. They took one look at the situation and slowed down. Both of them were human. They knew Riley. More importantly, they knew her father. "There must be a law against this," Harvin said, turning to the security officers. "She is keeping a rare creature improperly. I demand you confiscate it." "Him," Riley corrected. "And he chose to stay with me. Dragon bonding is protected under interstellar law. Check the Silverfall Treaty if you want. One security officer, a man named Rodriguez, stepped forward carefully. Sir, is there a problem here? Yes. This primitive assaulted me and refuses to surrender valuable property. Rodriguez looked at Riley. She shook her head slightly. He sighed. Sir, I saw the security footage. You reached for her companion without permission. That's technically assault under station law. She defended herself appropriately. This is ridiculous. Harvan pulled out a communication device. I am filing a formal complaint with the station council. We will see who has rights here. He pointed at Frost. That creature will be in my collection by week's end. The three Ashari swept away through the market, leaving Riley standing by her table. The other humans slowly went back to their work, but she could feel their attention still on her. They were waiting to see what she would do. Riley sat back down and stroked Frost's head gently. The little dragon nuzzled her finger, sharing feelings of trust and safety through their bond. He wasn't afraid. He knew Riley would protect him. Rodriguez lingered nearby. Riley, that was Harvan. He's connected, rich, he has friends on the council. I know, Riley said quietly. This isn't over. I know that too. Riley pulled out her personal communication pad and scrolled to a contact she rarely used. Her father's military emergency line. She hesitated for just a moment, then typed out a message. Dad, I might need some advice. Someone threatened my family today. She hit send and went back to her noodles. They were cold now, but she ate them anyway. Frost settled back onto her shoulder, his small weight barely noticeable but somehow deeply comforting. Across the market, she could see Harvan talking to other wealthy merchants. They were already planning something. She could tell by their body language. Riley finished her meal and cleaned up her trash. She had a shift starting in an hour. Life on the station went on, even when trouble was coming. But as she walked back toward the docking bays, every human she passed gave her a small nod. A sign of solidarity, a promise that if things got bad, she wouldn't stand alone. That was the thing about humans on frontier stations. They looked out for each other. And they really didn't like it when outsiders threatened one of their own. 6 months earlier, Riley had been walking through the lower decks of Crossroads Hub when she heard the crying. It wasn't human crying. The sound was higher, more musical, like a flute being played badly. Riley had been heading back to her quarters after a double shift repairing cargo haulers. But something about that sound stopped her cold. The lower decks were where people went when they wanted to avoid station security. Dark corners, broken lights, and air that tasted like recycled desperation. Riley knew she should keep walking. Mind her own business. Get some sleep. The crying came again, weaker this time. Riley changed direction and followed the sound. She found them in a maintenance corridor that nobody had cleaned in years. 3 Borrelians, slug-like aliens with gray skin and too many arms, stood around a collection of cages. The cages were crammed with creatures from a dozen different worlds. Birds with jeweled feathers, small mammals with 6 legs, and in the smallest cage, barely visible in the dim light, something white and trembling. Evening, Riley said, keeping her hands visible and her voice neutral. Didn't know there was an exotic pet sale down here. The largest Borrelian turned to face her. His translator device crackled when he spoke. No sale, private business. Move along, human. Riley looked at the cages again. Most of the creatures inside were drugged or hurt. The white thing in the smallest cage had blood on its scales. Scales, it was a dragon. A baby dragon, barely bigger than a rat, shaking so hard the whole cage rattled. That's a dragon, Riley said carefully. Dragons are protected. Silverfall Treaty. Damaged goods, another Borrelian said, kicking the small cage. The white dragon whimpered. Too small. Wrong color. We're disposing of it. Something hot and angry flared in Riley's chest. Her father had taught her a lot of things. Combat, tactics, survival. But the most important lesson was simpler than all of that. The strong protect the weak always. I'll buy him, Riley said. How much? The Borrelians looked at each other. The leader oozed forward, leaving a trail of slime. You have money, human? Real credits? Riley checked her account balance on her pad. 3 weeks of pay sat there, saved up for a better apartment. 2,000 credits. Not enough. It's all I have. Then you leave with nothing. The Borrelian reached for the small cage. We have schedules. The disposal chute is waiting. They were going to throw him away. Kill him. A living, breathing, intelligent creature. just because he didn't look right. Riley's training took over before she could think about it. She moved fast, covering the distance between her and the first Borrelian in 2 steps. Her elbow caught him in what passed for a throat. He went down gurgling. The second Borrelian reached for a weapon, but Riley kicked it out of his grip. The third one actually managed to grab her arm with 2 of his hands. Riley twisted, using his own grip against him, and threw him into a stack of crates. The crash echoed through the corridor. The whole fight took maybe 15 seconds. Riley was breathing hard, her heart pounding. The 3 smugglers lay on the ground, groaning. She hadn't killed them. Her father's voice echoed in her head. Use only the force necessary. She grabbed the small cage and ran. Station security found her 20 minutes later in a public corridor, still holding the cage. She had blood on her knuckles and a split lip from where one Borrelian had gotten in a lucky hit. The dragon inside the cage had stopped crying. He was just staring at her with pale blue eyes. The security interview took 3 hours. They pulled footage from the maintenance corridor. Saw everything. The cages, the smuggling operation, Riley's attack. You assaulted 3 civilians, the security chief said. He was an older man, human, with gray hair and tired eyes. They were killing him, Riley said, nodding at the cage beside her chair. That's not how the law works. Then the law is wrong. The security chief almost smiled. Can't argue with that. Lucky for you. We've been tracking those Borrelians for months. Illegal creature trading. You just gave us cause to arrest them. He looked at the dragon. Unlucky for you, that's a protected species. Possession without proper documentation is a felony. Riley felt her stomach drop. I was trying to save him. I know. But rules are rules. That's when the Silverfall Embassy got involved. A dragon ambassador arrived the next day. She was enormous. Her scales a deep emerald green, her wings folded against her back as she navigated the station corridors. Her name was Skyweaver, and she spoke in a voice that sounded like distant thunder. You are the human who rescued the white one? She asked Riley. Yes, ma'am. Skyweaver looked at the small dragon, who was now in a proper medical container. He was still weak but alive. You risked yourself for a stranger. For one of my people, why? Riley didn't have a complicated answer. Because it was wrong. What they were doing. Someone had to stop it. The great dragon studied Riley for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed her head. We are in your debt, Riley Dawson. The legal problems disappeared after that. The embassy declared Riley a friend of Silverfall. They offered her a reward, money, status, a formal position in diplomatic relations. Riley asked for only one thing. Can I keep him safe? Until he's strong enough to go home? Skyweaver looked at the little white dragon. That is his choice, not mine. Dragons choose their companions. We do not assign them. They put Riley in a room with the dragon after he had recovered enough to move. He was still tiny, still weak, but his eyes were clear. Riley sat on the floor and waited. The dragon approached her slowly, limping on one injured leg. He sniffed her hand. Then he climbed into her lap and curled up like a cat. I think he's choosing, the medical technician said quietly. Riley felt something then, a warmth in her chest, emotions that weren't hers. Gratitude, trust, safety. The dragon wasn't just sitting in her lap. He was bonding with her. Is it supposed to feel like this? Riley asked. Skyweaver, watching from the doorway, made a sound like gentle rain. Dragon laughter. Yes, young human. That is what family feels like. Riley had named him Frost that same day, because he was white as ice, because he had survived something cold and cruel, and because despite everything that had happened to him, his heart was not frozen. He could still trust, still love. Now 6 months later, they were inseparable. Frost shared her quarters, ate her food, and spent his days riding on her shoulder while she worked. Other humans on the station got used to seeing them together. The little white dragon and the mechanic who had fought 3 smugglers to save him. Their bond had grown stronger every day. Riley could feel his emotions as clearly as her own. Happiness when she came home. Curiosity when they explored new parts of the station. Peace when they sat together in quiet moments, and now as she walked back from the market, Frost shared a new emotion. Worry. Not for himself, but for Riley. He could sense her stress about Harven and the coming trouble. Riley stroked his head gently. We'll handle it, she whispered. Together. Frost chirped softly and nuzzled her neck. Whatever was coming, they would face it as they faced everything. As family. The council chamber looked like it was designed to make people feel small. High ceilings.
Empty gray walls.
5 elevated seats where representatives from different species looked down on whoever stood in the center circle. Riley walked into that circle with Frost on her shoulder and refused to feel intimidated. The chamber was packed. News of the hearing had spread fast. Aliens from a dozen species filled the gallery seats, curious about the conflict between a human and an Ashari merchant. More importantly, every human on Crossroads Hub had shown up. Dock workers in their stained coveralls. Engineers with tool belts still attached. Merchants who had closed their shops for the day. They lined the back wall, standing because all the seats were taken, silent and watching. This council will now hear the complaint filed by Crystalline Lord Harvin against Riley Dawson, the council chairman announced. He was Ashari himself, old and important, with a voice that echoed off the walls. "Lord Harvin, present your case." Harvin stood from his seat in the front row. He was dressed even more expensively than before, every piece of jewelry calculated to show his wealth. "Thank you, honored chairman. My case is simple. This human is illegally hoarding a rare creature in improper conditions." He projected images onto the chamber's main screen, pictures of Frost looking thin and exhausted, except Riley recognized those images. They were from months ago, right after she had rescued him, before he had recovered. "As you can see," Harvin continued, "the creature is clearly suffering, malnourished, distressed. Station regulations require proper care for exotic species. This human lacks the resources and knowledge to provide such care." "That's from when I first found him," Riley said. "He was dying because smugglers—" "Silence!" The chairman's voice cracked like a whip. "You will speak when given permission." Riley's jaw clenched, but she stayed quiet. Beside the chairman sat the other council members. A Borrelian who kept avoiding Riley's eyes, a Keyworks with compound eyes that reflected no emotion, a Talvine who looked bored, and at the end, Ambassador Patricia Green, the human representative. She was older, gray-haired, and her face was carefully neutral. Harvin called witnesses, other Ashari merchants who claimed Riley had been aggressive, that she had assaulted Harvin unprovoked, that humans were known for emotional instability and violence. "We have all seen how humans react to minor disputes," one merchant said. "They are primitives who cannot control themselves. Allowing such a being to possess a rare dragon is irresponsible." The lies piled up like garbage. Riley felt Frost tense on her shoulder. The little dragon could sense her anger, and he was starting to share it. Finally, the chairman turned to Riley. "You may now present your defense." Riley stepped forward. She had prepared for this. "I have documentation of Frost's legal bonding to me. The Silverfall Embassy approved it. Dragon bonding is protected under interstellar law. Section 7 of the Silverfall Treaty specifically states." "We are aware of the law," the chairman interrupted. "However, proper bonding requires the creature to be healthy and willing. These images suggest otherwise." "Those images are old," Riley said, forcing herself to stay calm. "I have current medical records that show Frost is healthy. I have statements from the Silverfall Embassy confirming our bond. I have—" "Emotional appeals are not evidence," the Keyworks representative said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. "Humans are known to form irrational attachments to animals. This does not constitute proper bonding." Ambassador Green finally spoke up. "Members of the council, I must object. Riley Dawson has followed every legal requirement. The Silverfall Embassy has certified their bond as legitimate. This hearing is based on false evidence and prejudice. The human representative is biased," the Borrelian said. "Of course she defends another human." "I defend the law," Green said sharply. "Something this council seems to have forgotten." The chairman's crystalline face somehow managed to look stern. "Ambassador Green, you will control yourself or be removed from this chamber." The arguing continued. Back and forth, legal terms and regulations that Riley barely understood. Through it all, she stood in that circle, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. The alien council members had already made up their minds. She could see it in the way they dismissed every piece of evidence she presented. Then Harvin made his final argument. "I propose a solution. I will personally take custody of the creature. I have the resources to provide proper care, a sanctuary specifically designed for rare species. The creature will want for nothing. A gilded cage is still a cage," Riley said. "It is more than you can offer," Harvin shot back. "You work in cargo bays. You live in a small apartment. You have no wealth, no status, no proper facilities. Riley felt something shift in the room. The humans along the back wall had gone completely still. Not moving, barely breathing. It was the kind of quiet that came before violence. I have a family, Riley said. That's what Frost needs. Not wealth. Not a sanctuary. Family. The chairman raised one crystalline hand. We have heard enough. This council will now vote on Lord Harvin's proposal to transfer custody of the creature to his care. You can't do this, Riley said. We can and we will. All in favor? 4 hands rose. Only Ambassador Green kept hers down. The motion passes 4-1. Riley Dawson, you are hereby ordered to surrender the creature known as Frost to Lord Harvin's custody immediately. Station security will ensure compliance. Riley didn't move. Couldn't move. This wasn't happening. They couldn't just take Frost. He had chosen her. They were bonded. Harvin smiled, triumphant. Thank you, honored council. Justice prevails. Security officers started moving toward Riley. She saw them coming but didn't step back. Frost was trembling on her shoulder, sharing feelings of fear and confusion through their bond. Riley. Ambassador Green's voice was quiet but urgent. Don't do anything foolish. Riley looked at the security officers, then at the council, then at Harvin's smug face. Her voice came out flat and cold. I was polite. I followed your rules. I showed you evidence. I did everything right. She touched Frost gently. Now you want to take my family. Every human in the room stood up at the same time. Not aggressive, not threatening, just standing. Unified. That's where the rules end, Riley finished. The chairman looked alarmed. Security, remove these humans from the chamber. I wouldn't, Ambassador Green said. She had stood up too, her hand on a small device at her belt. Not unless you want an interstellar incident. You dare threaten this council? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm reminding you of Article 7 of the Human Integration Treaty, the article that allows humans to defend family members with all necessary force. Green pressed the device. Alarms started blaring throughout the station. I've just activated Protocol Guardian. What is Protocol Guardian? The Talveen asked nervously. You're about to find out, Green said. Outside the station, visible through the chamber's observation windows, lights began to appear. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Big ships. Military ships. Human ships. Riley counted 3 before she stopped counting. Her communication pad buzzed. A message from a military frequency she recognized. Hold tight, kiddo. Cavalry's here, Dad. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouting, security confused. Harvin looking pale despite his crystalline skin. But the humans stayed quiet and still, waiting. Riley stroked Frost's head gently. It's okay, she whispered. My dad's here now. The little dragon chirped softly. He could feel Riley's relief through their bond. Outside, the human fleet took up positions around Crossroads Hub. And in the council chamber, everyone suddenly understood. You could push humans pretty far, but when you threatened their family, they pushed back with everything they had. Colonel Nathan Dawson walked through the docking bay like he owned the station. 2 squads of Marines followed him, their boots striking the deck in perfect rhythm. Station security watched them pass and wisely decided not to interfere. Everyone on Crossroads Hub knew the colonel's reputation. Everyone had heard stories about the border wars. The man was a living legend, and legends didn't follow the normal rules. He went straight to the council chamber. Didn't stop to check in with station administration. Didn't wait for clearance. The doors were sealed, but one of his Marines had them open in 30 seconds. The council's security team started to object until they saw the colonel's face. Then they stepped aside. Inside the chamber, chaos had settled into a tense standoff. The council members were trying to maintain order while aliens argued and shouted. Humans still lined the back wall silent and ready, and in the center circle, Riley stood with Frost on her shoulder, surrounded by nervous security officers who clearly didn't want to be the ones to grab her. Nathan Dawson took in the whole scene in 3 seconds. Then he walked straight through the security cordon to his daughter. Hey, kiddo, he said, his voice casual despite the situation. Heard you had some trouble. Riley's carefully controlled expression cracked just a little. Dad, I tried to handle it the right way. I know. I read all the reports on the way here. He looked at Frost, who was staring at him with those pale blue eyes. This him? Yes, sir. Nathan held out his hand slowly, palm up. the way you would with any cautious animal. Frost sniffed his fingers, then climbed down Riley's arm onto the colonel's hand. The little dragon weighed almost nothing. Nathan could feel him trembling slightly. "Good to finally meet you, Frost," Nathan said softly. "My daughter speaks highly of you," Frost chirped, a sound like wind chimes. Then he did something surprising. He climbed up Nathan's arm to his shoulder and settled there, the same way he rode on Riley's shoulder. The dragon could sense what Riley felt about her father. Protection, trust, love. That was enough for Frost. Nathan looked at the council then, and his voice changed. The casual tone disappeared, replaced by something sharp and cold. "So, which one of you decided to steal from my family?" The chairman tried to maintain authority. "Colonel Dawson, you have no jurisdiction here. This is a council matter. You made it my matter when you ruled against my daughter." Nathan's eyes swept across the council members. "Let me explain something to you. My daughter followed your laws, presented evidence, did everything by the book, and you ignored all of it because some rich merchant wanted a new toy. Lord Harvin has right," the Borellian began. "Rights?" Nathan's voice could have cut steel. He tried to buy something that wasn't for sale. When that didn't work, he tried to take it by force. "Where I come from, we call that theft." Harvin stood up from his seat. "I have done nothing illegal. The council ruled in my favor." "The council is corrupt," Ambassador Green said flatly. She had moved to stand beside Nathan. "We have evidence of your bribes, Harvin. Payments to 3 council members. Did you really think we wouldn't investigate?" The chamber went quiet. The accused council members looked at each other nervously. Nathan continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "You people don't understand humans. You see us as primitives, emotional, irrational. You think that makes us weak." He gestured to the fleet visible through the windows. "Let me correct that misunderstanding. Yes, we're emotional. Yes, we form bonds that you consider irrational, but those bonds are our strength." He pointed at Riley. "My daughter rescued a dying creature because it was the right thing to do. She bonded with him, made him family. And when you threatened to take him away, she called me, because that's what family does. We protect each other." The Chirax representative spoke up, his mechanical voice uncertain. "One small dragon cannot be worth this level of response. You brought warships over a pet." "He's not a pet," Riley said. "He's family," Nathan nodded. "And humans will burn down the galaxy before we let anyone hurt our family. You need to understand that. Write it down. Teach it to your children. Humans don't fight for territory. We don't fight for resources. We fight for each other." The chairman tried one more time. "This is unprecedented. You cannot simply ignore council authority." "Watch me," Nathan said. That's when Harvin made his fatal mistake. He pulled a neural stunner from inside his robes. Small, expensive, designed to incapacitate without permanent damage. He aimed it at Frost, still perched on Nathan's shoulder. "The creature is mine by council law." Harvin's voice was shrill now, desperate. "I paid for the ruling. I will take what belongs to me." He fired. Nathan moved faster than someone his age should have been able to move. He turned his body, shielding Frost with his own mass. The stunner blast caught him in the shoulder instead of the dragon. Pain lanced through him, his whole arm going numb, but he stayed on his feet through pure stubbornness. Riley caught him as he staggered, taking Frost carefully from his shoulder. The little dragon was terrified but unhurt. Nathan's Marines had their weapons up instantly, all of them aimed at Harvin. The Ashari merchant realized what he had just done, attacking a ranked military officer. In front of witnesses. On camera, Nathan straightened up, fighting through the pain. His voice came out like ice grinding on stone. "You just made 2 mistakes. First, you threatened my grandkid." He touched his numb shoulder. "Second, you shot me. I've been shot before. I didn't like it then either." Station security moved in fast, disarming Harvin before the situation could get worse. The merchant was shouting about rights and laws, but nobody was listening anymore. Ambassador Green spoke into the stunned silence. "I move to nullify the council's previous ruling on the grounds of corruption and coercion. Furthermore, I move to have Lord Harvin arrested for assault on a diplomatic officer and attempted theft of a protected being." The chairman looked around at the other council members. The ones who hadn't been bribed looked angry. The ones who had been bribed looked terrified. He cleared his throat. "The motion passes. The previous ruling is nullified. Lord Harvin will be taken into custody. Riley was still supporting her father, though he was getting his strength back. The numbing effect of the stunner was already fading. She looked at him with worry and pride mixed together. "You okay, Dad?" "I've had worse." He managed to smile. "Your dragon's got good instincts. Didn't panic even when I got hit." Frost, now back on Riley's shoulder, chirped and touched his small snout to Nathan's cheek, a gesture of gratitude. The colonel had taken a hit meant for him. Medical teams were already rushing in to check Nathan's condition. The stunner had been set low, probably just meant to knock Frost out. It would wear off in minutes. But the political damage to Harvin was permanent. As security dragged the Ashari merchant away, Nathan called out, "Harvan, one more thing. You called my daughter a primitive. Emotionally unstable, not fit to care for a dragon." He gestured to the fleet outside. "We primitives just crossed 3 sectors in under 4 hours to protect one small dragon. Think about that next time you insult a human's family." The council chamber slowly emptied. Aliens filed out, talking in hushed voices. The humans at the back wall finally relaxed, some of them grinning. They had won, not through violence, but through the simple presence of overwhelming force and absolute determination. Ambassador Green approached Nathan and Riley. "That was risky, Colonel. Protocol Guardian is supposed to be a last resort." "It was," Nathan said simply. "They tried to take my daughter's family. That's where last resorts start." Green smiled slightly. "Fair enough. I'll file the paperwork. Silverfall Embassy is already sending their gratitude. Apparently news of this has reached them." Riley looked at her father. "Thank you for coming. Always, kiddo." He put his good arm around her shoulders. "That's what family means. We show up." Frost chirped in agreement, and for the first time in hours, Riley laughed. Riley had been reviewing security footage for 3 hours when she found something that made her blood run cold. Nathan sat beside her in the station's security office. His shoulder had recovered fully from the stunner blast, but he had decided to stay on Crossroads Hub for a few days, partly to make sure the council didn't try anything else, mostly because he wanted time with his daughter. Ambassador Green stood behind them, watching the screen over their shoulders. "Go back," she said quietly. "Right there. That figure in the shadows." Riley paused the footage and zoomed in. During the council hearing, while everyone had been focused on the drama in the center of the chamber, someone had been watching from the back gallery. The cameras had barely caught them. Just a shape in dark clothing, face hidden by a hood. "Talveen," Nathan said, recognizing the body shape. "What's a Talveen doing lurking in the shadows?" "Taking notes," Riley said, advancing the footage frame by frame. The hooded figure was using a data pad, recording everything. They were documenting the whole thing. "Why?" Green pulled up her own pad. "Let me check registration. See what ships docked during the hearing." Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. Then she stopped. "Oh no, what is it?" Riley asked. "The Prophet's Edge. Talveen registered vessel. Docked 2 days ago. Hasn't moved since." Green's face had gone pale. "That ship belongs to the Exotic Acquisitions Guild." Nathan stood up straight. "I've heard of them. High-end smugglers. They don't deal in stolen cargo. They specialize in rare creatures." "Creatures like dragons," Riley said, the pieces falling into place. Frost was sleeping in her jacket pocket, exhausted from the day's stress. She touched him gently, feeling his warmth through the fabric. Green was pulling up more information on her pad. "The guild has been investigated dozens of times. Never enough evidence to convict. They're smart, professional, and very, very patient." "Harvin," Nathan said suddenly. "He was never the real threat. He was a test case." Riley understood immediately. They wanted to see how the galaxy would react to someone trying to take a bonded dragon. What kind of resistance there would be. What kind of support. "And we showed them exactly what they wanted to know," Green said bitterly. "That dragons are valuable enough to bring human warships running. That the bonds are real and strong. That separating a dragon from their bonded partner causes massive political incidents. So they won't try to separate bonded dragons," Nathan said, thinking like the military strategist he was. "They'll go after dragons that haven't bonded yet." "Baby dragons," Riley whispered. Frost stirred in her pocket, responding to her sudden spike of fear. She lifted him out gently. The little dragon looked at her with concerned blue eyes. Frost's emotions flooded through their bond. Not just concern for Riley, but something deeper. Memories, images of other dragons. Young ones. Calling for help. He's trying to tell me something, Riley said. She closed her eyes, focusing on the bond. The images became clearer. A world of purple skies and crystalline mountains, dragons flying in formation, and at the edges ships, dark ships, waiting. Silverfall, Green said, checking her messages. I just received a priority alert from the Silverfall embassy. They've lost contact with 3 outer settlements. Small colonies, family groups. Nathan was already moving toward the door. How far is Silverfall from here? 3 days at maximum FTL, Green said. And how long would it take the guild to mount an operation? They're probably already in position. This hearing was the final intelligence gathering. Now they'll move. Green's fingers flew across her pad. I'm requesting military assistance, but the nearest fleet is 6 days out. Too slow, Nathan said. By the time they arrive, the guild will have taken what they want and disappeared. Riley stood up, frost in her hands. Then we go now, with what? Green asked. Your father's 2 frigates and a diplomatic cruiser against a professional smuggling operation? And every human on this station who's willing to help, Riley said. She looked at her father. You taught me that the strong protect the weak, that when someone needs help, you don't wait for permission. You act. Nathan smiled, proud and fierce. I did teach you that. Okay, let's see who wants to volunteer for a rescue mission. The answer was, everyone. Within 2 hours, Riley and Nathan had assembled a fleet. The 2 military frigates, the diplomatic cruiser, and 12 civilian ships, everything from cargo haulers to small personal transports. 50 humans total, plus a handful of aliens who volunteered to help. A Chirax engineer who had been disgusted by the council's corruption, 3 Ashari merchants who had opposed Harvin and wanted to make things right. Even a Borellian ship captain who remembered that humans had freed his people from slavery 40 years ago. They weren't soldiers. Most of them were just dock workers and mechanics. But they were angry, and they were determined, and they were willing to fight for something that mattered. Ambassador Green briefed them in the diplomatic cruiser's main bay. The guild has 4 armed transports, approximately 200 mercenaries. They'll hit during the Festival of First Flight, when the adult dragons are performing traditional aerial displays. The target is a nursery colony, 50 baby dragons all under 1 year old. Too young to bond. Completely vulnerable. What's our objective? Someone asked from the crowd. Hold the nursery until the adult dragons can respond, Nathan said. He had taken tactical command and nobody argued. We're not trying to win a war. We're just buying time. How much time? A civilian pilot asked. As long as it takes, Riley answered. She was standing at the front with Frost on her shoulder. The little dragon looked out at the assembled humans, sensing their determination. Those baby dragons are Frost's family. That makes them ours too. The mood in the bay shifted. This wasn't about politics anymore. It wasn't about laws or treaties. It was simpler than that. Someone was threatening children and humans didn't tolerate that. We leave in 1 hour, Nathan announced. Pack light. Bring weapons, and someone send a message to the Silverfall embassy. Tell them help is coming. As the crowd dispersed to prepare, Riley stayed beside her father. We're outnumbered 4-1. I know, Nathan said calmly. We might not all come back. I know that too. He looked at her seriously. You can still back out. Stay here where it's safe. Riley touched Frost gently. The dragon chirped, a sound of absolute determination. He's family, Dad. I don't abandon family. No, Nathan said, putting his arm around her shoulders. You don't. You're definitely my daughter. The fleet departed Crossroads Hub 3 hours later. Destination, Silverfall. Mission, protect the innocent. Odds, terrible. But nobody backed down. Nobody suggested waiting for proper military support, because that was what humans did. When someone needed help, they showed up. Outgunned, outnumbered, unprepared. They showed up anyway. And somewhere ahead in the darkness, the Exotic Acquisitions Guild was about to learn a hard lesson. You could threaten a lot of things in this galaxy, but when you threatened children, humans would come for you with everything they had. Frost shared his emotions through the bond as they traveled. Not fear, not worry, just absolute trust in Riley. And through her, trust in all these humans who were willing to risk everything for dragons they had never met. 3 days to Silverfall. 3 days to prepare for a battle they probably couldn't win, but they were going anyway. Silverfall was the most beautiful planet Riley had ever seen. Purple skies stretched above crystalline mountains that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. Cities floated on clouds held aloft by technology so old that nobody remembered how it worked. And everywhere dragons flew, huge ones in brilliant colors, their wings spanning wider than small ships, their scales gleaming like jewels. The human fleet dropped out of FTL at the system's edge. 3 days of travel. 3 days of training and preparation. Now it was time. Contact from the surface, the communications officer announced. It's Skyweaver, the Dragon Ambassador. Riley stepped forward as the view screen activated. The great green dragon looked exhausted and scared. Riley Dawson. You came. Of course we came, Riley said simply. Frost chirped from her shoulder, greeting his elder. The guild fleet arrived this morning. 4 transports, just as your intelligence predicted. They're holding position above the nursery colony. Skyweaver's voice cracked slightly. We cannot fight them. We are not warriors. Our young ones are trapped. Not for long, Nathan said, studying the tactical display. Skyweaver, where are your adult dragons now? Scattered across the planet. The Festival of First Flight has them spread out. It will take hours to gather them. Then we hold for hours, Nathan said. Riley, take the civilian ships. Land near the nursery. Form a defensive perimeter. I'll take the frigates and keep the guild transports busy. Riley wanted to argue, to stay with her father where she could protect him. But she understood tactics. Someone had to guard the babies. Yes, sir. The fleet split. Nathan's military ships headed straight for the guild transports. Riley led the civilian vessels down to the surface, where a small colony of crystal structures housed the dragon nursery. They landed in a clearing surrounded by blue grass that swayed in alien wind. The nursery building was beautiful but fragile, never designed to withstand an attack. Inside, Riley could see small shapes moving. Baby dragons barely bigger than Frost, playing and sleeping and completely unaware of the danger coming for them. Set up here, Riley ordered the civilians. They spread out using their ships as cover, checking weapons. Most of them had basic training at best. They were scared. But they stayed. Above them, Nathan's frigates engaged the guild transports. Laser fire streaked across the purple sky. The military ships were faster, more maneuverable, but the guild had numbers and firepower. It was only a matter of time before they broke through. Incoming, someone shouted. 3 guild dropships had broken away from the main fight. They were heading for the surface, loaded with mercenaries. Riley watched them approach, her heart pounding. This was it. The dropships landed 200 meters away. Doors opened. Soldiers poured out. Borellians and Chiracs armed with modern weapons moving in professional formations. They outnumbered the human defenders 5-1. Riley activated her radio. Hold your positions. Don't fire until I give the order. The mercenaries advanced slowly, spreading out to surround the human position. Their commander, a large Borellian with expensive armor, amplified his voice. Humans, you are outmatched. Abandon this position and you will not be harmed. This is your only warning. Riley stepped forward, Frost on her shoulder. You're here for the babies. We are here for valuable assets. This does not concern you. They're children, Riley said. That makes it very much our concern. The Borellian commander gestured and his soldiers raised their weapons. Last chance, human. Riley looked back at her people. Scared civilians who should have been safe on a space station, who had volunteered anyway because it was the right thing to do. She thought about her father up in orbit, fighting against impossible odds. She thought about Frost, who had chosen her despite every reason not to trust humans. No, Riley said simply. The battle started. Mercenaries rushed forward. Humans opened fire. The clearing erupted in chaos. Riley moved on instinct and training, her father's lessons flowing through her body. Cover, aim, fire, move, cover again. Frost launched from her shoulder, sharing tactical information through their bond. He could sense the mercenaries' positions, their intentions, feeding that data directly to Riley's mind. She became a perfect soldier in that moment, moving and shooting with impossible accuracy. Around her, the civilians fought like cornered animals. Desperate and fierce, a dock worker named Chen took down 3 Chiracs with a mining laser. An engineer named Paula used a welding torch as a flamethrower. They were not soldiers, but they were humans protecting children. That made them dangerous. The mercenaries pushed forward. One Borellian broke through the defensive line, heading straight for the nursery entrance. Riley intercepted him, her rifle empty, using it as a club. They went down in a tangle of limbs. The Borellian was bigger, stronger, but Riley fought with everything she had. Then something small and white streaked past her face. Frost hit the Borrelian's eyes with tiny claws extended. The mercenary screamed and fell back. Riley finished him with a blow to the head. "Thanks," she gasped to Frost. The dragon chirped, then shared a new emotion through their bond. Not fear, not determination, hope. Riley looked up. The sky was filling with dragons. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Every adult dragon on Silverfall responding to the call. They had felt the baby dragon's fear. They had felt the human's sacrifice. The dragons descended like a storm. Skyweaver led them, her roar shaking the ground. The mercenaries looked up in terror as massive shapes blotted out the sun, claws and fire and wings everywhere. The professional soldiers broke and ran. Some made it back to their dropships. Most didn't. Above the planet, Nathan saw the dragons rising. He smiled and opened a channel to the guild commander. "You know what your mistake was? You thought about profit. We thought about family. You never had a chance. The guild transports jumped to FTL and ran. Nathan let them go. They weren't important anymore." On the surface, Riley sat on the ground exhausted. Frost climbed onto her lap and suddenly they were surrounded by baby dragons, curious, grateful little creatures who had felt Riley's determination to protect them. They climbed over her, chirping and squeaking. Some of them approached other humans, touching hands with tiny snouts. Bonds forming, right there in the aftermath of battle. 12 baby dragons chose human defenders, chose the people who had risked everything to keep them safe. Skyweaver landed beside Riley. The great dragon looked at the exhausted, battered humans who had held the line. "You traveled across space to protect children you had never met, fought against impossible odds. Some of you died for us." 3 humans had fallen, Paula Chen and a young pilot named Reed. "Why?" Riley looked at Frost, then at the baby dragons playing with her people. "Because they're family, and humans protect family. Always." 2 weeks later, Riley stood on Crossroads Hub's docking bay, watching Nathan's ship prepare to depart. Frost dozed on her shoulder. Around them, 11 other humans stood with their newly bonded dragons. The babies were still small, still learning, but the bonds were strong and real. "You did good, kiddo," Nathan said, hugging his daughter. "Really good." "I learned from the best," Riley said. She pulled back and smiled. "Think the galaxy learned its lesson?" "Some of them." Nathan looked at the dragons. "The rest will figure it out eventually. Don't threaten a human's family." He boarded his ship. Riley watched it depart, Frost sharing feelings of contentment through their bond. They had won. Not just the battle, but something bigger. Understanding, alliance, family that crossed species lines. Ambassador Green approached. "Silverfall has formally requested a permanent human presence. Defense advisors. Cultural liaisons. They want us here." "Good," Riley said. "Because we're not leaving." Frost chirped in agreement, and somewhere in the distance, hundreds of dragons answered. Family calling to family. Human and dragon bonded by choice and sealed by sacrifice. The galaxy was learning. Slowly but learning. Humans were dangerous, yes. But not because of violence or technology. Because of something simpler and more powerful. Humans loved fiercely, protected absolutely, and never ever abandoned those they called family. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but also the most reliable, the most loyal, the most worth knowing. Riley returned to her apartment with Frost. Tomorrow she would start her new job as liaison to the dragon colonies. Tonight she just wanted to rest. Frost curled up on her pillow, sharing emotions of peace and safety. Riley touched his small head gently. "We did good," she whispered. The little white dragon, once mocked and almost killed, safe now and loved, chirped his complete agreement.